The story begins with a young boy named Rio, who wakes up in a mysterious place. There, he meets a being that looks like an angel, who introduces himself as Michael. He tells Rio that he died in a truck accident, but not to worry, because he is going to be reincarnated in another world. And in this life, he is free to live however he wants. Rio says he just wants a peaceful life. Michael then explains that he will be reborn in a new world called Phi, a world full of magic, where people can use spells connected to their natural elements, and that Rio is most compatible with water magic. Since Rio wants an easy life, Michael says he will be reincarnated in the forest of Rondo. There, he will have a house protected by a barrier that keeps monsters away. Rio also receives a starter pack with a fully stocked fridge that will last for 2 months, so he does not have to hunt for food. He is also given a monster guidebook that describes the creatures living in the forest. Michael adds that there are no rules or secret tricks, and Rio is free to live a peaceful life if he wants. At first, this seems true. Rio has food and a safe home, so he spends many days, maybe even weeks, learning how to use his powers without danger. When he imagines water, it flows from his hands, solving the water problem. But then he starts thinking about fire. He tries to make fire by rubbing pieces of wood together, but he cannot. One day, while looking at the sun, he gets an idea. He decides to make ice and shape it like a round lens, so sunlight can be focused to start a fire. He imagines the water molecules changing in his mind, and it works. He creates real ice, shapes it into a lens, and uses sunlight to start a fire. With this, the fire problem is solved. Now he has just one issue left. He must be ready to face monsters. He first tries to attack with water magic, but it feels too soft, almost like a toy, and would not help in a real fight. He realizes that ice magic could be stronger, so he tries to create sharp ice spears. However, the spears do not work properly, and he cannot control them well. Rio understands that he needs much more training, so he spends many days practicing magic and reading the guidebook to learn about monsters. Later, when he feels more prepared, he leaves his house to search for food. While exploring, he finds quartz stones that can help start fires. But suddenly, something goes wrong, and he comes face to face with a demon boar. According to the guidebook, the demon boar is considered a weak monster. However, when Rio sees it in real life, he becomes very afraid and freezes. Somehow, he survives the first attack. When the boar charges again, Rio quickly gathers his courage and uses his ice magic with great effort. This time, he manages to defeat the monster. That night, he reads more from the guidebook and stops at the last 2 pages. The second to last page discusses dragons, creatures powerful enough to destroy entire cities with a single attack, and says no one can escape them. And the last page is about demons, but there is only one line written about them that people should pray they never meet one. After reading this, Rio becomes even more alert and cautious about the dangers of this world. In the next few days, he keeps searching for food. Then he meets another powerful monster. It is an assassin hawk. The guidebook says this bird is much stronger than the demon boar and moves very fast, like the wind. Rio sees that he cannot run away and must face it. This time, he stays calm and creates an ice shield. The hawk crashes into the shield and loses one eye. Hurt, and realizing that Rio is not easy to defeat, the hawk flies away. Time passes, and Rio keeps fighting monsters, so his magic becomes much stronger. He even learns a new spell called Water Cutter, which can slice even rocks. Near a lake, he meets a strange knight called a Dullahan. This warrior has no head, and the guidebook does not mention it. It is stronger than any monster Rio has seen, and he knows he cannot win. The Dullahan defeats him, but does not kill him, and it feels like the knight wants to help him. After that, Rio starts going to the lake every night to train with the Dullahan. One day, the Dullahan gives him a gift, a sword made from water. The blade looks like flowing water, but it is stronger and sharper than a real sword. After some days, Rio meets the same assassin hawk again, but this time the hawk has evolved and become more dangerous. It attacks first, and its new power stops Rio's magic. Now, magic does not work, so Rio fights with his sword. The water sword helps him, and because the hawk does not expect this, Rio takes the chance to defeat it in one move. On his way back, a giant dragon appears. Its name is Lewin, and it speaks through thoughts. The dragon says it is looking for the assassin hawk. Rio feels scared but tells the truth, and his honesty surprises the dragon, so it forgives him. Then the dragon notices the sword and recognizes it. Lewin explains that the blade was made by the Fairy King, which means someone very powerful is already helping Rio. They keep talking for a long time, while Rio asks many questions about this world. Almost a full day passes before Lewin hears a call from its clan and leaves. From far away, Michael watches everything and realizes something rare. Rio has a hidden gift called Eternal Youth, a power Michael has not seen since he last sent someone to this world, almost 1,000 years ago. One early morning, Rio goes to the seashore to collect seafood. During this quiet trip, he notices a broken ship near the coast. When he walks closer, he sees a man lying beside the wreck. Rio checks his pulse and realizes the man is already dead. Then he looks around and finds another man on the other side of the wreck. This one is still alive, and his name is Abel. Abel and several others were sailing on that boat when a sudden thunderstorm appeared. In the middle of the storm, a giant titan octopus attacked the ship. The boat split in two, and everyone fell into the sea. Luckily, the accident happened close to land, so the waves carried them to the shore. Since Abel is unconscious, Rio carries him home. After some time, Abel wakes up and looks around in confusion. He walks outside and is surprised by what he sees. There is a flower garden and a neat stone path leading into the forest. Soon, Rio returns and feels relieved to see that Abel is awake and safe. Before Rio arrived, Abel did not sense anyone nearby, so he wonders if Rio has a special ability to sense his surroundings. Plus, his worn-out appearance makes Abel even more curious. Abel wants to ask Rio about clothes, but stops himself, not wanting to be rude during their first meeting. Instead, he politely introduces himself and thanks Rio, believing that Rio saved his life. Rio calmly replies that there is no need to thank him because he only brought Abel back to the house. Tells him everyone else from the boat is dead. Abel does not react with much emotion because everyone on that boat was a smuggler. Before he can explain more, his stomach suddenly growls with hunger. Rio suggests that they continue their conversation during lunch. Abel finally asks Rio about clothes, and Rio explains simply that he does not have thread or cloth to make any. Abel suggests that he could buy clothes in a nearby town, but then he suddenly stops. It occurs to him that Rio probably has no money and might be living like an exiled holy man. In truth, Abel knows nothing about this place. He only assumes there must be towns somewhere nearby. Rio calmly explains the reality. There are no towns close to this area, which is why he lives alone like this. Abel then asks how Rio manages to find food and other useful things. Rio simply answers that he uses water magic. This surprises Abel. From what he knows, only about half the people in the central province can use magic at all. Hearing this makes Rio feel a little disappointed, though he believed his ability was rare. Still, Abel wants to confirm something. He asks Rio to take him back to the shipwreck. When they reach the shore, the place looks different. The bodies are gone. Rio guesses that the sea may have carried them away, or perhaps monsters took them. This makes Abel realize something important. If Rio had not saved him, he would likely have died as well. Feeling grateful, Abel tells Rio that even though they just met, he already considers him a true friend. Abel searches through the broken ship, but cannot find what he was looking for. Because of this, he changes his plan. He decides to head for the town of Loon, which he believes lies to the north. Since he does not know the way, he invites Rio to travel with him as a guide. Rio admits that he does not really know the road either, but he still agrees to help. He suggests they start the journey the next morning, so he can prepare first. Abel agrees, and the two confirm their plan with a handshake. Still, Abel cannot help noticing Rio's rough clothes and the lack of magical tools that a proper mage would normally carry. These details make him think Rio might be living in hiding because of poverty. With that thought in mind, Abel decides not to ask any more questions. Later, without telling Abel, Rio goes back to see the Dullahan. He wants to say goodbye and have one last training match. The knight accepts, and they fight again just as they have many times before. Rio gives everything he has, but the result remains the same. He still cannot defeat the Dullahan. But this time, something strange happens. After the fight, the Dullahan gives Rio a white robe. The next morning, Rio and Abel begin their journey north. The forest seems endless, and monsters appear often along the way. Abel handles them with skill, proving he has fought many battles before. Yet Rio becomes the one who stands out the most, and his unusual way of using water magic keeps surprising Abel again and again. Water mages are usually weak in combat, but Rio fights differently. His techniques are strange and effective, and they make Abel more curious with every step as they move deeper through the forest and toward the mountains in the north. Rio and Abel discuss the danger of meeting wyverns again. Rio does not mind facing them, but Abel would rather avoid that risk. Still, he is thankful for their earlier battle, because they now carry a bag full of magic stones that can be sold for good money. Soon, they notice a narrow road in the distance. Abel tells Rio that if they go east, they will reach a town. Rio is happy to hear that and says he has been craving a soft bed lately. Abel is surprised by this because he thought Rio was the type who cared only about fighting. When they arrive, they go into a small restaurant. There, Abel explains the adventurer guilds to Rio and suggests he join one. He says the guild card serves as an ID and lets members enter towns across the nation without paying gate fees. Rio likes the idea, especially since Abel had to pay a silver coin to get him in. Abel also explains that guild members can trade monster parts and magic stones, though someone needs to become an alchemist to make full use of them. Hearing this excites Rio, and his love of chemistry leads him to alchemy. Soon, their food arrives. It is curry and rice. Rio is surprised to see such a familiar dish. He remembers how anime characters often struggle to recreate food from their old world. But here, something like curry already exists. To him, that feels like a blessing. He enjoys every bite and keeps asking for more, eating with great excitement. The next morning, Rio is still talking about how good the curry was. Abel watches him and begins to wonder whether Rio has ever eaten proper food. Since Abel never mentioned curry earlier, Rio jokes that Abel might be hiding more surprises. The comment catches Abel off guard and suggests he may be hiding something. After leaving the town, they walk through wide meadows and farmland until they reach the entrance of Loon. At the gate, a guard recognizes Abel and looks shocked. News had spread that Abel was missing. Abel does not explain much and simply says that Rio saved him. The guard immediately thanks Rio and shakes his hand with excitement. Since Rio is not yet a registered adventurer, he has to pay an entry fee. Once again, Abel pays the silver coin without hesitation. The guard warmly welcomes Abel back and asks what he plans to do next. Watching this friendly exchange, Rio realizes that Abel is well known and respected in this town. They head straight to the Adventurers Guild. On the way, Abel explains that new adventurers usually start at rank F. However, because he trusts Rio's ability, he plans to recommend him. With that recommendation, Rio might start at rank E, or even D. The system is simple. The higher the rank, the harder the quests. Still, Abel believes Rio may not need quests right away. They are carrying many magic stones, and if they sell them, Rio could become rich. Selling all of them at once might even disturb the market, so Abel decides they should first speak with the guild master and handle it properly. When they enter the guild, many people are shocked and happy to see Abel alive. Rio quietly watches the scene and smiles, surprised that his friend is so well known. To avoid crowding the room, he steps outside. While walking around, he meets an elf girl who seems curious about his clothes. She says they look like something worn by the fairy king. Rio feels confused because he has no idea who that is. The girl does not explain and says she is in a hurry. Before leaving, she says she hopes to see him again. Soon, Abel finds Rio and brings him back inside the guild hall. He introduces Rio to everyone as the man who saved his life. The adventurers thank Rio warmly before returning to their work. After that, Abel takes Rio to the receptionist to begin the registration process. He recommends Rio for D rank, which surprises her. She explains that it is rare for someone from the Crimson Sword Party to recommend another person. Even so, she approves the request, though Rio must first pass a physical assessment. They then go to a meeting room where the guild master, Hugh, rushes in after hearing that Abel has returned. He is shocked that Abel survived the mountains. Abel uses this to support his recommendation for Rio's rank. Hugh agrees, saying no weak person could survive such a journey. Before the discussion ends, Abel's party members, Lynn, Riha, and Warren, rush into the room. When Lynn sees Abel alive, she breaks down in tears. Abel apologizes for worrying them and explains that Rio saved his life. Hugh sees that Abel and his party have a lot to talk about, so he decides to give them some space. Meanwhile, he asks the receptionist, Nina, to continue his registration instead. Before leaving, Hugh tells Rio that Abel's party is the strongest group in town and that everyone had been worried about Abel. He adds that if Rio truly saved Abel, then he must be strong himself. Because of that, he approves Rio's D-rank status and leaves the rest of the paperwork to Nina. Nina asks Rio about his skills and suggests he join a dungeon training class. Rio agrees. She also explains the city's calendar and time system, which Rio finds surprisingly similar to Earth's. Finally, she offers him a room in the guild lodge for the next 300 days. After completing the registration, Rio meets Abel again. Together they sell some magic stones, and then go shopping for clothes and a staff. Abel wants Rio to use a staff like a proper magician, but Rio says that he prefers to fight with his sword, and Abel finds that unusual. During their conversation, Rio notices many similarities between this world and Earth. This makes him wonder if someone from Earth came here long ago and changed things. Later, Abel takes him to a welcome party where they eat and drink all night. The next morning, tired and slightly hungover, Rio walks with Nina to the guild lodge. There she introduces him to his roommates, Nils and Ito, and later Amon, a young girl who lost her parents and hopes to become an adventurer. Meanwhile, Abel talks with his party about Rio and his powerful ice magic. They find it hard to believe. Abel insists that he saw it himself. Rio joins the other new adventurers for beginner training, where a skilled instructor explains the basics and tells them they will visit the central dungeon in Lune later that day. During the lesson, Rio surprises everyone by asking about teleportation between dungeon floors, which shows he already knows more than a normal beginner. The instructor explains that while some dungeons have magic gates, Lune's dungeon does not. Later, the class heads to the dungeon, where huge walls surround the entrance to protect the town from monster outbreaks. Inside the dark stone halls, Rio teams up with Amon, and soon, they encounter a giant soldier ant. Amon freezes in fear, but Rio stays calm and tells him to prepare. He traps the ant with ice magic, giving Amon the chance to gather his courage and cut off its head. That night, Rio and his roommates talk about their first dungeon experience. Everyone is impressed that they defeated a soldier ant, though Amon admits he only landed the final blow while Rio did most of the work by holding the monster in place. Amon says he wants to return to the dungeon the next day, but he is unsure about going alone, so Rio offers to go with him. He is also curious because they found a monster on the first floor, even though the instructor said it should be empty. Ito adds that soldier ants have recently been seen on higher floors as well, and no one knows why. Just then, Abel appears and explains that soldier ants can dig upward. The boys are surprised to see the most famous adventurer in town. Nils quickly introduces himself and excitedly asks Abel for a handshake, calling him his idol. Abel agrees and gives him simple advice. Always make survival the top priority. Rio then asks why Abel is there so late, and Abel replies that he just returned from a mission. At that moment, his party arrives, clearly upset that he did not report back to the guild first. Abel jokes that he was helping beginners, but one of them tells Warren to carry him back. Warren lifts him like a sack, and Abel starts complaining like a child. The next morning, Rio and Amon return to the dungeon, where they face a group of monster dogs. Rio holds them in place with ice magic, while Amon fights and defeats several with his sword. During the fight, Rio notices that Amon's sword style reminds him of Abel, and guesses that he may have trained in the same place. He also sees strong potential in him. Amon is surprised that Rio, a mage, understands sword fighting so well, so Rio explains that he trained with a mentor but developed his own style. He points out that Amon's technique is safe, but uses too much energy, and with better stamina, he could become much stronger. Rio also mentions that even Abel practices his sword form every morning, showing that talent alone is not enough. Hearing this, Amon feels inspired and promises to train harder, while Rio feels glad to see his new friend so motivated. The next day, Rio visits the city library, and its size surprises him. He asks the librarian for books on alchemy, and she directs him to the beginner section. However, there are so many books that he feels overwhelmed, so he decides to step outside for some fresh air. Suddenly, the city turns dark as a total solar eclipse appears, and everything begins to feel strange. The people around him vanish, and the air grows heavy. At that moment, a powerful attack comes from behind, but Rio reacts quickly and blocks it with a wall of ice. A demon woman appears, calm and amused. Rio can immediately tell that she is far stronger than anyone he has faced before. Realizing he cannot escape this strange space, he prepares to fight. She attacks with fire, but Rio defends himself with layers of ice shields. Then she uses an invisible wind attack that breaks through, though his armor protects him. Noticing his clothes and gear, she becomes curious. Seeing that he wears the robe of the Fairy King, she assumes he must be powerful. She then switches to sword combat. Rio draws his ice sword and stands his ground. Her speed overwhelms him at first, but his training helps him keep up. He counters with a rain of icicle lances, but she easily dodges them. Rio soon realizes she is using wind magic to increase her speed. When she tries to finish him with a jumping strike, he blocks it. Her attacks are fast, but not stronger than what he faced during his training with the Headless Knight. She asks who he is, but Rio says nothing, and instead deflects her fire spell with another ice lance. Now more serious, she increases the intensity of her attacks. Yet Rio remains calm. He finds an opening and launches more lances, but she blocks them with firewalls and stone barriers. Changing his strategy, Rio uses high-pressure water jets that slice through the rocks and hit her. She is injured and clearly shocked. He continues attacking blindly. In mid-air, he notices that she can heal, but before he can react, she strikes back and sends him crashing into a building. As she prepares to finish him, drops of hot water suddenly fall from the sky, burning her skin. She quickly protects herself by covering her body with rock. Rio lands back on the ground and prepares to fight again. The demon then uses a massive fire spell that destroys everything nearby and slowly walks toward him. But just then, the eclipse begins to end. Sunlight touches her sword, and it starts to fade. She realizes the fight is over. Before leaving, she introduces herself as Leonore and warns Rio that another demon may appear before their next meeting. She tells him to survive until then. As the eclipse fully ends, the world returns to normal. Shaken by the fight, Rio goes to the bank to withdraw money and then heads back to the dorm. At first, no one is there, but just as he is about to leave, he finds his friends being harassed by other adventurers. The group is led by Dan, who mocks them for being weak. Suddenly, Rio appears behind them and quickly knocks out the others. Dan tries to fight back, but Rio easily dodges his attack and knocks the wind out of him with a single hit. Afterward, Rio heals his friends and tells them they need to improve their stamina so they are not caught off guard again. Then, they all decide to relax at the public bath. There, Ito heals the injury Rio received during the fight. Everyone wonders who could have hurt someone as strong as him, but Rio stays quiet. For now, he chooses to rest instead of explaining what happened. Amon, Nils, and Ito explore the dungeon together. Nils and Amon fight the goblins, while Ito stays back to heal them when needed. And after each fight, Nils collects the magic stones, while Ito takes care of Amon's injuries. As they move deeper, something feels wrong. Goblin archers appearing on the 4th floor does not make sense. Nils suggests they should head back, and Ito agrees immediately. Amon wants to go deeper for more rewards, but Nils reminds him of Abel's warning, not to risk their lives for a few coins. In the end, they decide to return to the surface, which turns out to be the right choice, because deeper in the dungeon, another team has already been wiped out by a much stronger monster. Meanwhile, on the surface, Rio keeps thinking about his fight with Leonore. Her magic felt overwhelming, yet his casting speed was able to keep up. He realizes that his biggest weakness is his movement speed. Wind magic would solve that problem, but he cannot use it. Instead, he comes up with an idea to use water jets to move faster. He tries creating an icy surface and pushes himself forward using water jets from his back. But the result is disappointing, and he barely gains speed. Still, he sees potential in the idea and decides to keep improving it. Later, Rio goes to the library to study demons and alchemy. At the same time, Lynn from Abel's party is there, searching for a spell strong enough to create an ice wall that can crush golems. She finds nothing, which makes her feel relieved, as it supports her belief that Rio might not be as powerful as he seems. Just as she finishes, she meets the elf girl, Sarah. The two greet each other and exchange a few words before Sarah leaves to rejoin her party. Back at the guild, Amon, Nils, and Ito return to report what they saw. Nils gets nervous when he sees Nina, the receptionist, and Ito teases him before giving the report. They explain that goblin archers were found on the 5th floor. Nina checks the magic stones, thanks them, and quickly goes to inform the guildmaster. Guildmaster Hugh listens to the report and frowns. Goblins should not be anywhere near the 5th floor, so he takes this as a serious warning. He immediately asks Nina to call the highest-ranked adventurers available. At that time, only 2 top parties are in the city, the Crimson Sword, led by Abel, and the White Brigade, led by Phelps. Soon, both groups gather in Hugh's office. Hugh explains that goblins appearing so close to the surface may be a sign of a monster outbreak. The last time this happened was 10 years ago, and it caused serious damage. He offers them a mission to investigate the dungeon. If they confirm signs of an outbreak, they must retreat immediately so the city can seal the dungeon and call in the knights. Both parties agree to take on the mission. The next morning, Rio prepares to visit the Northern Library and tells his friends that he wants to study higher-level alchemy. Ito confirms confirms that adventurers of D rank and above can enter, while Amon adds that forbidden books are also kept there. When Ito mentions that only B rank adventurers can read those, Ryo becomes even more excited. Soon after, he heads to the library while his friends return to the dungeon. At the Northern Library, Ryo enjoys the calm and quiet atmosphere. He looks for books about demons, but hesitates to ask for help, worried that mentioning demons might cause panic. As he walks upstairs, he notices Sarah and is immediately drawn to her. At the same time, Hugh arrives at the dungeon gates with the two high-ranked parties. Abel feels uneasy and asks Lynn to scan ahead using wind magic. She senses hundreds of monsters waiting inside, confirming that a monster outbreak has begun. Hugh immediately orders everyone to retreat and inform the knights and the guild. Back in town, Nils and the others see a notice that the dungeon has been closed. At first, they think it is because of the goblin archers, but soon a man rushes in with urgent news. All adventurers are ordered to gather at the dungeon wall to stop the monsters from escaping. Meanwhile, in the library, Ryo and Sarah begin talking. They introduce themselves and discuss books. When Sarah asks what he is looking for, Ryo almost says demons, but changes his answer to golems and alchemy. Sarah is surprised by his goals and offers to help him find useful books, as she knows the library well. She also shares that she is the only member of a B-rank party called Wind. Ryo recalls hearing that she is the only elf in town, and Sarah explains that most elves avoid humans, but she is different. At the dungeon wall, adventurers take their positions as monsters begin to break through the gates. Hugh gives the order to attack, and arrows and magic fill the air. Soon, the knights join the fight. The number of goblins seems endless, and Hugh realizes this outbreak is worse than the last one. During the battle, Abel's party runs out of arrows, but Nils arrives just in time with a barrel full of them. He also delivers a message from Hugh, warning them to prepare for the monster boss. After most of the goblins are defeated, Hugh sends Abel and Phelps with their teams into the dungeon. With Lynn's wind magic helping them land safely, they rush inside and quickly clear the remaining goblins near the entrance. Soon, a goblin general appears, followed by two more. Abel realizes they are facing a goblin king. He quickly forms a plan. Each general must be taken down before the king joins the fight. He and Phelps each take one general, while Lynn and Rhea handle the third. The battle begins, and Abel cuts off his opponent's arms. Just then, the Goblin King appears at the gate. Abel shouts for everyone to get down, and a deadly wind slash tears through the dungeon, instantly killing all three generals. Everyone is shocked by the king's power. Abel and Phelps attack together, but their weapons cannot break through its armor. Abel then uses his special ability to turn ghost-like and dodge the king's attack. He gets close and strikes the king's heart, but it is not enough. As the king prepares to strike back, Abel calls for Lynn. She attacks at the perfect moment, launching wind spears that pass through Abel as he turns ghost-like again and strike the Goblin King directly. This time, the attack succeeds, and the king finally falls. Everyone breathes in relief, thinking the battle is over. However, they do not yet realize that a greater threat is still waiting deep within the dungeon.
And that is it for today. If you enjoyed this recap, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and feel free to write whatever you want in the comments section. Thank you for watching.